For thousands of years, we've told ourselves the same story. Humans tamed the wolf. We built the fire, we threw out the scraps, and slowly, deliberately, we turned a dangerous predator into man's best friend. It's a flattering story. It puts us in charge of nature itself. It's also probably wrong. The deeper scientists look into the origin of dogs, the less it looks like something humans did, and the more it looks like something wolves did to themselves. We didn't domesticate them. They domesticated themselves into us letting them stay. To understand how strange that idea really is, you have to go back to the world wolves and humans actually shared. Picture the Ice Age, somewhere between 20 and 40,000 years ago. Humans lived in small bands, 20 or 30 people, moving constantly, hungry most of the time, surrounded by animals that could kill them in seconds. Wolves were one of the deadliest of those animals. Pack hunters, massive jaws, night vision far better than ours. If you were a human back then, a wolf was not a friend. A wolf was a reason to sleep with one eye open. And yet, at the edge of almost every human camp, wolves kept showing up. Here's the part most people get wrong. Humans did not invite them in. Humans did not pick the friendliest pup and decide to raise it. For most of this process, humans weren't doing anything at all. They were simply leaving behind bones, fat, skin, and half-eaten carcasses because that's what hunter-gatherers do even on a good day. To a wolf, a human camp wasn't a threat to avoid. It was a buffet that never stopped moving. So the wolves had a choice to make, and most of them made the obvious one. Stay away. Hunting your own food is dangerous, but at least nobody is throwing spears at you. But a small number of wolves were built differently. Less reactive, less aggressive, just calm enough to creep a little closer to the firelight than the others dared. This is where the truly strange part begins. Those wolves weren't being trained. Nobody was rewarding them on purpose. They were simply surviving better because calm wolves got to eat without getting killed, while the aggressive ones either got speared or scared off before they ever got close enough to benefit. Evolution did the rest. Generation after generation, the camp filtered for exactly one trait: tameness, not intelligence, not loyalty, just the accidental ability to tolerate being near humans without panicking or attacking. This sounds like a theory. It isn't. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitri Belyaev decided to test exactly this idea, but he didn't use wolves. He used silver foxes, animals that had never been domesticated in any way, in any country, in any century. His method was almost insultingly simple. Every generation, he picked only the calmest, least aggressive foxes and bred them together. That's the entire experiment. No training, no teaching, no bonding exercises, just selecting for one trait over and over again. Within 10 generations, something happened that should not have been possible that fast. The foxes started wagging their tails. They whined for attention. They sought out human contact instead of fleeing from it. And then their bodies began to change too, without anyone breeding for appearance at all. Their ears went floppy, their snouts got shorter, patches of white fur appeared on their coats, their tails curled upward. Belyaev had only selected for behavior, and evolution rewired their physical bodies as a side effect, almost like it was the same switch. That detail matters more than people realize, because it means the very first proto-dogs probably didn't need humans to shape them at all. If a population of wolves simply filtered itself for calmness near human camps, their bodies may have started looking less like wolves and more like dogs long before a single human ever touched one. Floppier ears, softer faces, a slightly smaller, less threatening frame. Not because humans bred them that way on purpose, but because tameness itself seems to drag those changes along for the ride automatically, in species after species, almost like a packaged deal written into the biology. Which means the wolves that eventually became dogs may have looked less dangerous before a single human ever decided he liked them. Scientists actually have a name for this strange package deal, and it's called domestication syndrome. The leading theory points to something called neural crest cells, a small group of cells in a developing embryo that control two things that sound completely unrelated: fear response and physical features like ear cartilage, jaw size, and fur pigment. Select an animal for calmness, and you're accidentally tweaking the exact same cells that shape its face and its ears. Nobody designed it this way. It just happens to be how the biology is wired in foxes, in dogs, and possibly in every animal humans have ever tamed. And here's something that makes this even stranger. This didn't seem to happen in just one place. Genetic studies on ancient dog remains suggest wolf populations across different parts of Eurasia may have started this same self-taming process independently, separated by thousands of miles, with no contact between them. Different wolves, different continents, the same accidental decision to inch closer to the firelight instead of running from it. Once that happened, the relationship accelerated fast, but notice who was actually doing the choosing. Wolves hear danger before humans do. They smell predators humans can't detect. A wolf hanging around camp wasn't a pet. It was a free, self-installed alarm system. And once humans noticed the benefit, the partnership tipped from accidental to intentional. But by then, the wolves had already done the hard part. They had already selected themselves into a population that could live beside fire without fear, long before any human gave them a name. This is also why dogs are considered the very first domesticated species in human history. Earlier than sheep, earlier than goats, earlier than farming itself. Long before humans had any concept of breeding animals on purpose, wolves had already started breeding themselves into something new, on their own terms, for their own survival. And the self-adaptation didn't stop there either. Thousands of years later, when humans finally invented farming and started eating far more grain than meat, dogs faced a new problem. Wolves can barely digest starch at all, but the dogs living alongside early farmers gradually evolved extra copies of a gene that breaks down starch, letting them eat human leftovers that would have left a wolf's stomach in agony. Nobody bred them for that on purpose. It simply happened again, the same pattern repeating. Dogs quietly rewriting their own biology to stay useful, stay fed, and stay close to us. The bond didn't stop at survival either. When a human and a dog stare into each other's eyes, both species release oxytocin, the same hormone responsible for the bond between a parent and a child. Wolves don't do this with humans. Dogs do. That stare you get from your own dog right now isn't an accident of breeding charm. It's the leftover of a self-selected survival strategy that worked so well it rewired both species emotionally, permanently. And the proof that this bond became something deeper than usefulness is sitting in the ground. In Germany, archaeologists found a 14,000-year-old grave containing a man, a woman, and a dog buried carefully beside them. That dog had been severely sick as a puppy, and yet it survived for months afterward, which means someone fed it, sheltered it, and kept it alive through an illness during one of the harshest periods in human history. That isn't domestication for convenience. That's grief insurance. That's love, recorded in bone, 14,000 years before anyone wrote the word down. Of course, this story has a darker side too. Once humans started actively breeding dogs instead of just tolerating them, we pushed some of them past what evolution ever intended. Pugs that struggle to breathe, dachshunds with spinal problems most wolves never had to deal with, bulldogs that can no longer give birth without surgery. We took a wild animal that tamed itself for survival, and in some cases bred that very survival instinct nearly out of existence. But somewhere underneath all of that, the wolf is still there. When your dog circles 3 times before lying down, it's still flattening grass that hasn't existed for 30,000 years. When it buries a toy in the couch cushions or twitches mid-dream, that isn't a learned trick. That's a memory written into its biology long before either species had a name for the other. So the next time someone tells you that humans tamed the wolf, you can tell them the truth. We didn't choose the dog. A handful of slightly calmer, slightly braver wolves chose us, one cautious step toward the firelight at a time, generation after generation, until fear quietly turned into trust, and trust quietly turned into something that still doesn't have a proper scientific name. The species we call our best friend was never created by us at all. It created itself right under our nose, while we were too busy surviving to even notice. And tonight, somewhere near you, that same animal is probably going to curl up exactly the way its ancestors did beside a fire 30,000 years ago,